Welcome back. So this is the full moon. We've got the full moon in Leo on the 25th of January, 2024. Now, this is quite a powerful one. It's in opposition to Pluto. The sun's in a conjunction with Pluto. And if you've watched my 2024 forecast, my Pluto in Aquarius forecast, or my January forecast, you'll understand why that is so important. This is a really epic time. And as we have a look at this, we'll also notice there's this really powerful T-square to Jupiter between the sun and the moon. This is a very, very deep occurrence in terms of full moon. This is one that packs a hell of a punch. As we go through this, I'm also going to deep dive into the asteroids that I see showing up in very, very strong places at the exact moment of this full moon. So I don't know if you use mythical named asteroids or named asteroids, but I like to have a bit of fun with them because I think they give us a much more insight to a birth chart than you could actually get on your own. Often the themes that come in are surprising, and then you can mirror them back and see them in the planets as well. But they always bring up something that I think is kind of shocking, insightful, exciting, and I just find it fun. So I'm going to be doing some of that at the end. So if that's not your thing, you might just want to watch the first part. But if you like the mystery of the whole of the cosmos being part of this reading, then stick around to the end. My name's Louisa Tannermunson. I'm a channel that uses astrology and subliminal techniques. I'm trained in hypnosis and timeline therapy, but I use these to create, I think, freedom for people that I work with. So the whole idea of this channel, Feel Good Astrology, is to create a space where we can be open to possibility, and open to the possibility of feeling better, understanding what is coming up or might be coming up, so we can take practical action, and also consider what we might need to heal or let go of or free ourselves from in our life. So anyway, welcome if this is the first time you've joined me here. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you like this, by the way, please do subscribe. That's always useful. Anyway, let's bring on this chart now. So I'm adding it to the screen, and you should see we've got the full moon in Leo at 5 degrees 14. Now, if you are born around the time of having anything like your sun or your moon or one of your angles at 5:14, let's say from 2 until 7 or 8 degrees in the sign of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio, this is going to be something that really triggers a moment in your life, or triggers a feeling of unsettledness. You know, the full moon energy is a bit of a jolt. You know, it is showing us where things have got a bit too much and we need to take stock. You know, now sometimes that can be quite great. You know, we realize that we've got these really abundant lives and we've got a lot going on and it's really, really great. And yet it's also a moment to just take stock, slow down, take a moment for yourself and to think, okay, there's a lot going on here. How much of this is actually mine? How much of this belongs to me? How much of this is just collective rubbish that I'm holding for everyone else? I see it as a moment in time to either explode with the magnitude of it all, or to realize, I just need to step back a little bit. You know, the full moon is a part in the cycle where the moon becomes absolutely full to its brim. It's full of light. It's absolutely at its pinnacle. And then it starts to wane. It starts to come back into that place of peace and quiet. It's a bit like the in-breath and the out-breath. The in-breath, the full breath, is the full moon. And the out-breath, you know, as you get to that end, and you just, that's the point of the new moon. It's like the cosmic in-breath and out-breath, these moon phases. And so this is us with absolutely full lungs bursting full of fresh air, hopefully fresh air. And, you know, it's like, now what? Well, okay, it's a moment to release. We can't hold this forever because it's not practical, and we literally can't hold the air in our lungs forever. It's not a permanent thing. Everything changes. So we come to this fullness and then we have to release back. So, yeah, where are we experiencing fullness in our charts to the point where we now need to release it back and get ready for a bit of peace and quiet. This moment of putting everything back into order, tidying it up. Obviously, you know, as things grow and grow and grow in magnitude, things come out of their natural spaces. They come out of their natural homes. They grow too big. Things get a bit chaotic. And it's that time to, okay, just need a bit of time to myself. So anyway, leading up to the full moon, on the same day of the full moon, on the 25th, leading up to it, we've got the moon in exact opposition to Pluto. So as the full moon is coming in, the element of fullness is absolutely in full swing. Let's put it that way. Like the moon in opposition to Pluto is pretty strong. Like the moon is our feelings and our psyche. Pluto is that area where we want to control everything and where we get really narky and stressed if things don't go our way. It's that point of, no, absolutely not. You know, it's the resoluteness. Almost like if you give way or surrender, you're going to die. You know, like with Pluto, it's always, you know, do or die. You know, it's such a strong theme. And so the moon here is absolutely stressed out. It's like, I don't want to do this. I want to submit. I want to surrender. And there's a part of us that is not wanting to surrender. It's like a cosmic schizophrenic state where we want two opposing things at the same time. The moon is actually wanting to release from the control and actually be quite sovereign and do its own thing. And yet there's this other side to us that is absolutely saying, no, but we have to do it like this because we are connected to everything else. So if we don't do this, it's going to be consequences. So it's this massive separation within ourselves, and quite possibly because it was going on in ourselves, it's going to be going on in the world, right? As above, so below. So be very aware of all of the narratives that you are choosing to connect with around the time of the full moon, because coming up to that full moon, the feeling of separation and that feeling of being pulled apart, it seems, between wanting to do your own sweet thing and go your own sweet way, and yet being absolutely signed in to follow exactly what you're told to do for the social good of everyone. That feeling is so strong. And you know, you might scale it down into your own life, that feeling of I need to take a fresh breath. I need space from something that feels very controlling. And you know, the chances are it's you that's doing it to yourself, because that's usually what is playing out for most of us. So that's something to observe coming up to the full moon, is not only do you want the release, but how did you get yourself so caught up in the first place? How have you played into your own stuckness and caught upness that is creating that need, that desperate need to be freely creating for yourself? So that's the first thing to consider from my perspective. Also, this isn't related to the actual moon itself, but we've got Mars in a square to Chiron at 15 degrees in the sign of Capricorn and Aries. So here's Chiron here, 15 degrees in the sign of Aries. And here's Mars here, 15 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. Now, if you notice there, you can see Mercury's right behind him. And right after the full moon, you'll see that Mercury goes into the square with Chiron. So these two are really working that Chiron energy for sure at the time of this full moon. Now, Mars squares are pretty dynamic. They usually show up with quite a lot of frustration, personal frustration, where you're determined to do things, and yet feel really frustrated. You might stop. If you've got Mars squares in your birth chart, you might find that I have, and one thing that I've noticed with my Mars squares is I've got the determination to do something, and yet there's a frustration, something is letting me down. And where it falls in my birth chart is it's either like something at home or something in terms of my body. You know, my body is not playing ball, but my sort of determination is there. And it's a frustration of not being able to get these in gear. A bit like if you are, you know, driving the car, you know, when you first start to learn to drive the car and you've got your, this might not be true for people who don't drive the same way. Like I'm talking stick shift or using a gearbox. As you know, anyone that starts to learn to drive goes through this bunny hopping stage where you're trying to go too fast, but you're not quite in gear. So yeah, there's that sort of energy coming on. But Mars in a square to Chiron, like Chiron, you know, Chiron does show us where we've got majesty and mastery. But before we get to the mastery, we've got the like untold heaps of pain and childhood wounding and like that raw spot, that sore spot that just keeps coming up again that we can't seem to quite get to the bottom of. It's that. And so Mars is absolutely frustrated, and yet there is this like sore spot. It's almost like our self-sabotage. We're ready to go, we're ready to take action, and there's that self-sabotage point that's not letting us move beyond it. And how can we find the freedom of that? This is the thing to, I think, really be aware of coming into the full moon, because the full moon energy is bringing that up. And, you know, how might that look on a collective level? Well, that's a bit shocking. You know, people like talking about collective pain and collective self-sabotage, collective do it some more. I'm not ready to take action yet. Treat me badly a little bit more. A bit like, how sometimes we just seem to ask and again for pain because we're not quite ready to take responsibility for the pain that we're feeling or the pain that we're experiencing. So Mars in a square to Chiron just feels kind of off. And yet it's something that we all go through. There are these moments where we become a lightning rod for misery in our own experience. This doesn't sound like feel-good astrology, by the way, but bear with me. This will turn around, I promise you. You know, what are we doing to ourselves? This bringing us back round to the same point again. And how is the frustration helping? Chances are it's not, but the frustration is raising the energy somewhat, so you realize you've got to do something. And this kind of echoes back to the 11th on the day of the new moon in Capricorn, where I said, you know, it feels like we're being pushed to move forwards and step forwards in life, and yet we don't feel quite ready. Well, this is still going on. If you haven't already taken action by the time of the full moon in Leo, it really feels like, you know, you have to make a choice now. And of course, that's actually not true either, because we can always make a choice on any flipping day we want. But if there is this sense of cosmic impending, like something is coming up, this feeling that we've got, all of us, this feeling that something's about to change and we just need to step up a gear, and yet there's something that's kind of holding us back. What is that? Is it comfort? I don't know. But it's worth checking in. If any of this resonates with something that you're struggling with, check in with it. And, you know, don't ignore it is what I would say, because where we ignore things, these things tend to come up anyway. And then we have no control when they come up externally. But we do have control if we look at it ourselves. We have lots of control. We can control how we observe things. But like I say, Chiron is about majesty and mastery. It's about what we move beyond. It's not about us being stuck, but it starts off there. And, you know, once we see it, once we see the game we're in, once we see the game we're playing on ourselves, we can move beyond it. Now, so they're two very, very strong narky things. You know, you got the moon in opposition to Pluto, Mars in the square to Chiron. If we think about it, Pluto is transformation, but usually quite difficult transformation. Pluto's the planet of death, dying, resurrection, i.e. something completely transforming from one thing completely to another. A bit like you put all your old waste together in a compost bin, compost down into that beautiful black gold that new life can come from. But it essentially changes shape and size and energy. You know, the energy doesn't go, but the shape and field of things goes through a massive shift. Then Mars, like the will to survive and the assertiveness, and Chiron, the pain. I mean, before the full moon, we could actually be quite sick of ourselves and quite sick of what's going on around us. It wouldn't surprise me if we've had it up to here by the time the full moon comes, because it just feels like, this is a pained world right now. And of course it's not, but it appears that way, really appears that way. And after the full moon, the moon goes into a square with Jupiter, an exact square with Jupiter. Now, obviously, at the time of the full moon, you've got the moon and the sun and the moon in a T-square with Jupiter applying to it, both of them. You know, Jupiter, great planet. I find Jupiter quite fun. He's jovial. He's expansive. He's full of optimism and well-being and this idea of growth and let's do this, and he's a joker, but he's also proud and he also inflames things. I mean, yeah, it's okay to grow things. Who doesn't want to grow things? Like, growth is a natural part of life. You put a seed in the garden. I love gardening. I love putting seeds in and seeing what comes up and which are thriving and which aren't, etc., etc. But if a plant grows too fast, it gets leggy and it doesn't have the support. It's not able to support itself. If things grow too fast, they become like an inflammation. Think about, like, so many of us are inflamed in our bodies. We don't actually want untapped growth necessarily. Growth is good, and we want to understand how we can manage the growth. We don't want it to be so big that it becomes a problem. So I think Jupiter in a square to the moon and the sun can really inflame our personality. We can get a bit proud and a little bit too stuck in our ideas. And the moon in a square to Jupiter, we really are feeling things absolutely really strongly. So yeah, around the time of this full moon, I wonder what day it's on. Let me just check. Around the time of this full moon, we probably, it's on a Thursday. That's kind of good. I always think full moons on a Friday or a Saturday are times that I avoid going into towns, going to bars or restaurants or anything like that, because, tempers are really high. On a Thursday night, it's a bit more benign, but I would probably not choose to go anywhere too public, too inflamed, where there are crowds of people. I think the full moon, everyone's feeling really psychic and our waters are high, if that makes sense. And I think, when we're feeling really stirred, it's not a good idea to collectively come together. I think it can spell disaster sometimes. So yeah, it's probably a day where I would choose to be around people that I love and trust, and also keep some of what's going on. I'd maybe start releasing it a couple of days before, if things are already starting to build, if I'm already starting to feel tense. Best thing you can do is really watch a comedy and do things that help you feel really released and expanded in a different way. For sure, the feeling of transcendence and expansion and transformation are really, really big. And I can also see we could be absolutely caught up in the disaster of the times and this, that, and the other. So yeah, watch your energy really, really well around this time, especially if it's fitting into your chart somehow. If this area here, say between 0 to 7 degrees in the sign of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius are highlighted, then really pay attention to what's going on and what's driving you right now. I think that's probably the phrase I would use. What is driving you? Because that's really how this full moon feels, like it's really driving emotions in quite a strong way. So should we take a deeper look and have a look at the asteroids that are playing into this? So I mentioned this in my new moon video. I normally do asteroid related astrology with people that I'm working with closely. So I use named astrology. For instance, I might put an asteroid in that has their name or their surname or their business name. I might use a named asteroid to describe a situation they're in. There's an asteroid house, asteroid talent, asteroid amour. There's all sorts of different asteroids. Hygeia, the goddess of health and healing. So many different ones that you can use that can really help describe the situations you find yourself in. There's always a funny way that asteroids show up. Like if something new happens in your life, and then you check to see if there's an asteroid of that name, it tends to be like rising, like coming over one of your angles or crossing your sun at the time that you discover it, at the time the change is going on. It's incredible. Anyway, at the time of the full moon in Leo, and I've checked this on a brilliant website called serenu.com. That's S-E, is it double R? SERENNU.com, serenu.com. And you can, it will bring up an ephemeris for like 1,000 asteroids you know, and you can see which ones are at the exact degree that you're looking for. So at the time of the full moon in Leo, I was looking for the closest 4 asteroids or bodies in space that were closest to the moon and the sun at this degree of 5 degrees 14. What we've got here is trans-Neptunian object Ixion, which a few people have written about. And actually, I mentioned this in my new moon video, but there is another website that I really, really love. And I've spoken to him before in the past, not recently actually, but alexasteroidastrology.com is a fantastic place to go to get some interpretations. He does a lot of work for really big astrology publications and things, so he's very much sought after, but a really, really good sound interpreter of asteroid energy. So we are going to be seeing a lot of his interpretations in this. So we've got trans-Neptunian object. That is an object that is out beyond Neptune in the sky. We've also got asteroid Hekate. You'll see here I've put in brackets. These numbers are related to the numbers associated with these asteroids, with these bodies. It helps you find them. So you could put these numbers into, say, www.astro.com, like I have, and you'll find them in a chart. So anyway, we've got trans-Neptunian object Ixion. We've got asteroid Hekate. Then we've got the full moon and the sun, both at 5:14. Hecate's at 5:14 as well. Yeah, so interesting. Then we've got asteroid Apophis and also asteroid Memoria. So let's have a look at what these might be explaining to us. Now, one thing I do notice, I'm not sure if I noticed it before. Yeah, you can just see it. So at the time of the full moon, there is this yod formation. So there we've got this yod formation between Saturn and the moon, because obviously Saturn is in this 5-degree angle as well. And we've also got Venus here at 2 degrees, is that 56 or 36, coming into our moon here, and both of them making a semi-sextile to the sun. So yeah, that's a very interesting sort of angle. The yod is really saying, like, where the finger of yod is pointing at, which is the moon, is saying this is the thing that kind of resolves the problem. And if we focus in this direction, there'll be this like magical opening, this something that opens up and gets a bit easier for us. So when we've put in these asteroids, this gets much stronger because Venus is slightly off. You know, Venus is at 2 degrees something. And so that orb is quite wide, whereas Ixion and Apophis, so Ixion is at 5 degrees and Apophis is at 5:23. They're both in a conjunction in Capricorn, also in a conjunction with Venus. This feels quite tight. And also Memoria is in a conjunction with the moon. So this, to me, is saying, you know, first of all, Memoria is quite important. It's worth finding out what she represents, but then understanding how this yod comes into play. I think that's worth really sort of diving into. So let's have a look further. So we're going to start with Memoria then, and I've got this directly from alexasteroidastrology.com. So Memoria is the Latin word for memory or remembrance. I've used Memoria in charts before in terms of you know, people talking about memory problems, or in terms of remembering people, like memorials and things like that. So Memoria is there, so it can function in a couple of different ways. It functions astrologically in that capacity as an indication of a good or bad memory, depending on aspects, a harking back to the former circumstance, a reviving of the past, the collective sum of remembered experience, which makes us who we are. Wasn't that interesting? So at the time of the full moon, and if you think of the moon as well, the moon is very much about our psyche and our awareness and our emotions. So it's like we've got an emotional awareness of what we've been through. That's how I'm reading this. And, you know, if we think of this chart in terms of how it's showing up to describe what's happening in the world, there is this world remembrance of what we've been through in recent times, this world memory, which could be good or bad, but it's harking back to a former circumstance, a reviving of the past. Now, we might not want the past revived. That's for sure. But there's a collective sum of remembered experience, which makes us who we are. So there's this, at the time of the full moon, there's an appreciation. This is who I am because of this experience I've been through. And we may or may not want to go back there, but we're remembering it all the same. So this is like, if you're feeling pretty weepy, like if you get weepy around the time of the full moon, or if you've got, as I mentioned before, planets, sun, moon, angles between 0 degrees in the sign, in the fixed signs, and 7 degrees in the fixed signs, i.e. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, this could make us feel very, very sensitive. And, you know, those of us with the capacity to be weepy at the time of the full moon, this is on. So that's worth looking at. Let's have a look at Ixion then, and then Apophis straight after. Ixion's a bad boy. Ixion's not very nice. In fact, I'm pretty sure one of the characters in one of the Superman films, one of the villains, like had an Ixion. He might have even been called Ixion, but Ixion is trapped in a wheel, you know, forever and ever, like turning around. He's trapped in a wheel-like prison because he's been really bad. You know, he's been given a second chance, and he has been completely ungrateful and kind of burnt all his bridges. So here's what Alex says. Astrologically, Ixion represents ingratitude, the violation of social norms of conduct. You get offered a second chance and then waste it and betray and murder. And now Alex, and like I say, Alex Astrology, Alex's Asteroid Astrology, or AlexAsteroidAstrology.com, he has looked at quite a few of these prominent murders, sort of untimely deaths, and big events and things like that. So you can look at his chart and see what he has to say about those. But he's saying often prominent in the charts of murderers and homicides. So like Ixion is a really nasty character that appears to have no remorse. And that's the thing. You know, so he gets trapped in a wheel. This is in mythology. He gets trapped in a wheel forever, to go through time and space, forever repenting, forever needing to repent for his awful deeds, because he betrayed everyone, even the hand that was trying to feed him. You know, he betrayed everybody. So it's a really, really nasty little point in the chart there. And then we got Apophis, who's also really nasty. So Apophis represents an evil influence or individual committed to destruction and anarchy. Apophis is associated with the commission of the horrible, unforgivable acts and appears frequently in the charts of mass shootings, terrorism, or extreme cruelty, either in the events themselves or the natal charts of their perpetrators. So again, that's from AlexAsteroidAstrology.com. So isn't it interesting, at the time of this full moon, we've got Ixion, which is like a betrayer of people, and Apophis, who is like this evil influence, these unforgivable acts, both in a really, really tight square, a tight conjunction, playing into this yod. And then here at the moon, we've got the memories of these unforgivable acts. So I have to say, when I put these asteroids in and looked at this, you know, my first thought was, crikey, I'm definitely not going anywhere like public. I don't want to go to a public place on that particular day. I'm definitely not going to go anywhere that's, you know, like a capital city. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to do that, but, you know, when I hear mass shootings and things like that are associated with both of those asteroids, I would just say, be really careful about where you're putting your energy at that time and place. Now, obviously, if you were to look at your own birth chart, you could find out where Ixion and Apophis fall in your chart, because, you know, it's very easy for us all to sit here and say, oh, love and light, you know, we're all good people, but we've all done an unforgivable act at some point. I'm not saying that we've done, you know, we've committed murder or anything like that, but, you know, we're human beings. We're all human. And as such, we all make mistakes. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that unforgivable act, like we might have lied about something in a way that was harmful. We might have done things that we're not proud of. We might have also bitten the hand that fed us. You know, we might have really reached out to help somebody. Somebody might have really reached out to help us, and we might have done the Ixion thing and kind of slapped them down somehow. So, you know, if we're looking at this as our personal charts, we might actually at the time of the full moon be remembering some of the shitty things that we've done, or some of the shitty things that other people have done to us. That's easier usually to focus on. But I would also, you know, not encourage, because it's a fun thing to do, but just be aware that nobody's perfect. You know, we're all, you know, we all make mistakes. And the important thing is, like, what do we do with them? How do we move on from them? And how do we make good on them? So it's interesting seeing that. Now, like I said, we've got that yod here because of these three asteroids. We've also got Hekate. Now, I like Hekate. She's I guess if we look at the goddesses, you know, like the three idea of crikey, what is it? Virgin Mother, crone, like the faces of femininity. You often find Hekate is like the crone. she's seen as the old crone in many respects, but she is one of these images of femininity. You know, she is part of the female inheritance in many respects. But anyway, Alex says that Hekate relates to the far-seeing prophecy and ceremonial magic, the wisdom accrued by age, like there's a mention to the crone, intuition, protection and guidance. I've used Hekate before, you know, in charts with people who are quite magical, or who are going from one stage of life to another, which I think is a form of magic in itself. You know, isn't it amazing how our bodies transform and take us on these journeys? Especially during crucial life passages such as puberty, childbirth and menopause. So, you know, she's like a guide by our side. She's the hidden intuition. She is the magic of birthing in many respects. So yeah, she's in the first house, which is interesting. That's how she's showing up from my London perspective of the time that I drew this chart up. But yeah, Hecate's there. Now Hekate is showing in a trine to Ixion and Apophis, I think, and also making this grand trine to Jupiter. Now this is a little bit, now obviously this is based on a London time zone, and Jupiter's, you know, an inflammation point. It shows where things move very quickly and can expand very quickly. In this chart is in a conjunction with midheaven. Now obviously, you know, according to where you are in the world, it's unlikely to be here right at the midheaven. But, you know, seeing Ixion and Apophis, the idea of bad deeds and unforgivable acts and ingratitude connected to Jupiter, expanding on that, and then Hekate, the magic. I think it's really important for us on this day of the full moon to be very, very careful with how we use our energies. A lot of people use intention work with the new and the full moon, in fact, with all sorts of astrological phenomenon. But to me, it feels like it's a day when magic could almost be co-opted in a way to cause harm rather than cause good. So I would absolutely, you know, I guess where I would say is almost leading up to the full moon, if you're aware of yourself as a magical being, I think it's time to really purify ourselves and get really clear about what we stand for, and where our lines are. You know, what do we feel is good and right and proper for us, and what do we know is taking us down the wrong road? Because to me, it feels as if there's a lot of influence, almost like if we had an angel and a devil on our shoulders, as so many people you know, as has been shown to us in film and cartoons and stuff like that throughout our whole lives, the idea that we can access heaven or hell or angel and devil energy, to me, it feels like there is this sense of like a nasty whisper in your ear. So yeah, at the time of the full moon, I think it's a time when we need to absolutely use our discernment really, really carefully, and make sure we really know that what we're connecting to is right and good and proper for us. Now, I did mention at the time of the new moon reading that discernment was really important, and that we had this applying square to Neptune from Venus. Well, at the time of the full moon, Venus is actually now separating from that square, but she's still in the square with Neptune. You know, Neptune is very magical, and Venus can be quite magical as well. You know, they're both about flow and creativity. Now, in this square, there's a bit of frustration there. And I really think it's time to use discernment about this and how we use our energies. But seeing as Venus is in a conjunction with Ixion and Apophis, you know, we really need to be careful as to what we are doing for love. How far will we go for love? So interesting times, I would say. And yeah, the key point here is that Memoria is right there. If we go right back to the beginning then and tie this all together. So at the time of the full moon, I was really talking about the power coming into it, and how like Pluto, Mars and Chiron are so strongly emphasized at the time of this full moon that we really could do with paying a bit of attention leading up to the full moon in terms of our emotional set point, in terms of where we are emotionally. I think there are people that can cause things to happen through the strength of their emotions. You know, like you hear about people that are that can be telekinetic, like using telekinesis as opposed to telepathy, but like telekinesis, they look at things and things, you know, move or shift or whatever. I really think our emotions could be really off around the time of this full moon. So my biggest advice, I think, leading up to this time is to get as clear as you can, so that the potential of it, i.e. you could make some real progress on getting free from stuff that's held you back. You could get free from the self-sabotage that comes up. And talking about self-sabotage, when you look and see that Ixion and Apophis are playing into this chart, you know, that's definitely self-sabotage. So we could free ourselves from any area in our life where we've sabotaged our progress. And all we have got to do really is to face ourselves, really look at ourselves honestly, recognize that we're human and that we've made mistakes, and forgive ourselves. So if we can get really real to who we are, I think there's a massive transformation that can happen. And I think if we go into this full moon completely blind, we may well find that we don't use our discernment quite as keenly as we would ordinarily. So there you go. That doesn't sound so warm and fuzzy like my normal feel good astrology messages, but I really think it's important that we just guard our energy at this time. It's a very dynamic full moon, and it makes me wonder what's going on in the world at this time. I'm recording this on the 8th of January, so I wonder what is going on in 2 weeks' time, like 2.5 weeks from now. What is occurring that is making us all feel so jumpy? But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this useful. I am going to be putting my asteroid stuff on Patreon. I'm just resurrecting my Patreon account. So if you are interested in more asteroid based astrology and a slightly more mystical feel to it, then please do join me there. It's feel good astrology basically at Patreon. But anyway, if you've liked this and enjoyed this, please do subscribe. Please do let me know your comments below. I respond to most people's comments. It might take a few days, but I really, really love that interaction. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Hope you use this full moon with joy and grace and ease and freedom. But anyway, wishing you lots of love. Bye for now.